The year was 2479 and humanity had reached the far edges of the galaxy. Great colonies floated among the stars and massive research ships traveled beyond known space. One such ship was the Aurora's Echo, a long-range explorer vessel sent to study a mysterious region known as the Rift Veil, a zone of strange energy storms and distorted space. Captain Elias Ward stood in the observation deck, staring at the swirling lights outside the window. The Rift Veil looked like a moving ocean of color, beautiful yet dangerous. He had seen many wonders in space, but nothing like this. Beside him stood Dr. Lyra Venn, a quiet xenobiologist from the United Coalition Science Division. She was tall, with sharp eyes and calm energy. Unlike most of the crew, she didn't seem afraid of the rift. Instead, she seemed curious, almost drawn to it. "The readings are changing again," she said softly, checking her wrist scanner. "The rift's magnetic field is pulsing, almost like it's alive." Elias turned his head slightly. "Alive? You think this storm can think?" She smiled faintly. "I think everything in the universe reacts to life, even storms." Before Elias could respond, a loud alarm broke the quiet hum of the ship. The floor trembled beneath them. "Red lights flashed across the deck. Bridge to Captain Ward," shouted a voice over the comms. "Massive surge in the rift's energy field. It's pulling us in." Elias ran to the nearest console. "All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers. Reroute power to the engines." The ship shook violently. The rift's colors outside twisted into wild flashes of light. The sound of tearing metal echoed through the hull. Elias grabbed the edge of the table as the gravity systems flickered. "Status?" he shouted. "Engines failing. Hull breach on deck 4. We're losing power fast." The next moment, the entire ship jolted as if struck by a giant hammer. The control systems went dark. Emergency lights flickered on. Lyra grabbed a support bar to keep from falling. "We can't hold the ship," Elias yelled. "All crew, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." The hallways of Aurora's Echo were filled with chaos, smoke, alarms, and rushing crew members. Elias guided Lyra through the corridors toward the escape pods. One explosion rocked the ship again. The floor tilted and they stumbled. Lyra nearly fell, but Elias caught her arm and pulled her forward. "Come on. Pod chambers ahead." They reached the escape bay, where most pods had already launched. Only one remained. The systems showed partial damage, but it was still functional enough to reach safety. Elias pushed Lyra inside. "You first," she shook her head. "No, Captain. You'll need to guide the landing." He frowned but didn't argue. He climbed in beside her and sealed the hatch. Through the window, the Aurora's Echo was falling apart, its hull glowing as energy tore through it. The pod launched into the storm with a loud roar. Inside the small capsule, everything shook. Red lights flashed as the pod spun wildly. Elias struggled with the manual controls, trying to stabilize their descent. "Hold on," he shouted. Lyra gripped the seat tightly. The storm outside was bright, too bright, until suddenly the light vanished. Moments later, the pod crashed hard onto something solid. The impact threw both of them against their harnesses. The sound of metal scraping against ice filled the cabin before silence finally returned. Smoke filled the air. Elias coughed, his head spinning. "Lyra, you okay?" She unbuckled her belt slowly. Alive, somehow. The pod systems were failing. The temperature began to drop quickly. Elias looked through the small window. They had landed on a frozen world, covered in endless snow and thick mist. They grabbed emergency packs and opened the hatch. The air outside was thin and cold enough to freeze exposed skin in seconds. Their suits barely kept the warmth in. The sky was dark, filled with moving clouds of electric light from the rift above. In the distance, a mountain rose, and at its base, something strange shone faintly through the mist. "Do you see that?" Lyra pointed toward the faint light. Elias nodded. "Looks like a structure. Maybe a base or an old station. Let's move." Each step was heavy in the snow. Their oxygen levels dropped fast. Elias's visor showed cracks in his left shoulder plate. He knew they didn't have long. When they finally reached the light, they discovered a massive door half buried in ice. An ancient alien structure. Strange symbols glowed on its surface. Lyra touched the markings. They pulsed faintly, responding to her touch. The door slowly opened with a deep hum. Inside was a dark corridor lit by a dim blue glow. The air inside was breathable, thin but not deadly. They stepped in, sealing the door behind them. The corridor led to a small chamber. In the center stood a platform with old machines and a cracked energy core. Against one wall there was a single survival pod, a bed-like capsule that glowed faintly. Elias scanned it with his wrist pad. This thing still works. Temperature control, oxygen recycling, and automatic heat regulation. It's a survival bed. Lyra smiled, her breath visible in the cold air. That's good news. Elias nodded but frowned at the readings. Bad news is, it's only built for one person. She turned her head slightly and smiled again, the soft kind of smile that said she wasn't afraid. There's only one bed, she said quietly, and we both need to survive. Elias looked at her, unsure what to say. The situation was awkward, but not in a personal way, more in a matter of survival way. Humans were fragile in the cold. If one froze, the other wouldn't last long either. Lyra slowly moved closer, checking his cracked suit plate. Your power cell's leaking heat, she said, adjusting a wire. If we both use the bed's thermal system, it might keep us alive until help comes. He nodded slowly. You're right. We'll take turns keeping watch. The survival pod's cover opened with a soft hiss. Warm air escaped from inside. It was small, but enough for two people if they didn't mind the tight space. They climbed in carefully, activating the heat controls. For the first time since the crash, Elias felt warmth return to his body. The quiet hum of the machine filled the air. Outside, the wind howled through the frozen ruins. Hours passed. Lyra checked the remaining supplies. 1 oxygen tank, 2 rations, and a damaged comm unit. Distress signals too weak, she said. We'll need a stronger power source. Elias rubbed his forehead. Then we'll find one in the morning. For now, rest. Lyra nodded and leaned back. The dim light of the room flickered across the metallic walls. She looked thoughtful, almost peaceful. Captain, she said after a while, do you ever wonder why humans always survive things that should kill them? He opened one eye. Because we're stubborn? She chuckled softly. Maybe, or maybe it's something more. I've studied 100 species and none of them adapt as fast as humans do. Even when the universe throws storms at them, they find a way to keep going. Elias didn't reply, but a small smile formed on his face. Her words reminded him of Earth, the oceans, the deserts, the people who always rebuilt after disasters. As he drifted towards sleep, the warmth of the pod and the soft hum of the machines lulled him into calm. But just as his eyes closed, the floor beneath them vibrated slightly. Lyra sat up, frowning. Did you feel that? Elias opened his eyes. Yeah, probably just shifting ice. But the vibration came again, a slow, deep pulse through the metal. Then faintly a light appeared on the far wall. The alien symbols began to glow one by one as if the structure were waking up. Lyra looked around, eyes wide. Captain, I think this place isn't dead. Elias stared at the glowing symbols. His heart beat faster. Then what is it? She met his eyes, her expression serious now. Something alive. And it just noticed us. The soft hum of the ancient structure echoed through the chamber. The alien symbols on the walls glowed with a gentle blue light, spreading across the floor and ceiling like veins of light. Captain Elias Ward and Dr. Lyra Venn watched in silence, their hearts pounding. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air felt heavy, almost alive. The machine that had once kept the cold away now seemed small compared to the strange power flowing through the walls. Finally, Lyra whispered, It's reacting to us, or maybe to you. Elias frowned. To me? Why me? She pointed to the lights. When I touched the symbols earlier, they barely glowed. But now they're responding strongly as if they recognize something. Elias looked at the wall again. The lights seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. It was impossible. But in deep space, he had learned that impossible things often became real. Let's not jump to conclusions, he said carefully. We need data before we assume anything. Lyra smiled faintly. That's what I like about you, Captain. You still think like an explorer, even when the universe starts talking back. They began scanning the walls with their portable devices. The readings were strange. The structure's material wasn't metal or stone. It was a mix of organic and synthetic elements. The deeper the scans went, the more they revealed. Tunnels beneath the floor, rooms full of unknown energy sources, and a faint signal repeating over and over. It's a transmission, Lyra said after a moment, adjusting her scanner. Very old. Maybe millions of years. It's trying to say something. Elias leaned closer to the screen. The translation program struggled to make sense of the symbols. Slowly, a message began to form in the human language database. Signal confirmed. The bearer has arrived. Lyra's eyes widened. Bearer, what does that mean? Elias shook his head. No idea. But I don't like the sound of it. They followed the signal deeper into the structure. The corridor ahead was narrow, filled with frozen air and faint blue mist. The lights grew brighter the further they went, as if guiding them somewhere. After several minutes of walking, they reached a large circular chamber. In the center was a huge crystal-like core, floating a few feet above the ground. Energy flowed through it like glowing rivers of light. Elias approached slowly. This must be the power source. Lyra studied it carefully. It's still active, Captain. This technology is beyond anything in the Coalition, maybe even older than our galaxy civilizations. As they examined it, the core suddenly pulsed with light. A voice echoed through the room, mechanical yet soft, as if it had been waiting a long time to speak. Human life form detected. Elias and Lyra froze. The voice continued. Verification complete. Signal bearer confirmed. Elias looked around. Who are you? He demanded. The air shimmered and a figure appeared above the core, a projection made of light. It looked vaguely human, but its face was smooth and featureless. I am the sentinel of the gate, it said. I have waited for your kind to return. Return? Lyra asked. You mean humans were here before? The sentinel's glowing form flickered slightly. Before your kind walked on your homeworld, before you called yourselves human, we knew of your spark. You were chosen. Elias frowned. Chosen for what? To continue what we could not. The words filled the chamber like a cold wind. For a while, Lyra and Elias stood silently, trying to understand. Humanity had spread across hundreds of systems, but no one had ever found clear proof of older contact with humans. This changed everything. Lyra stepped closer to the projection. Why now? Why show yourself only to us? Because only now has a human entered the rift and survived, the sentinel replied. The others failed. The storm is a test, a gatekeeper. You have crossed it. You are proof that humanity has evolved as we hoped. Elias clenched his jaw. So the rift, it's not a natural storm. No, it is a creation. A barrier between what is known and what was forgotten. Elias stared at the glowing crystal. His heart felt heavy. We lost good people because of that storm. You caused that? The sentinel's voice softened. The storm was never meant to harm. It was meant to reveal strength. Only those with will survive. You have proven what we believed, that your kind endures. Lyra turned to Elias, her expression serious. This could change everything. Humanity always thought it was alone in the dark, but what if we were made for something bigger? Elias shook his head slowly. Or manipulated for it. The sentinel continued. Beneath this moon lies a gate, a bridge to the network we left behind. It has slept for eons. Only the bearer can awaken it, Elias frowned. And if I refuse? Then it remains silent. But know this, the rift will grow. It will swallow more worlds until balance is restored or lost. The lights in the chamber flickered. The sound of distant rumbling filled the air. The structure was shifting again. We need to get out of here, Elias said quickly. We can't stay while this thing moves. But Lyra grabbed his arm. Captain, wait. This could be the answer. The reason humans have always survived when others didn't. If this is true, it means our whole history is connected to something far greater. He looked at her, uncertain. Her eyes were bright, filled with the same determination that had kept her calm during the crash. All right, he said finally. But we move carefully. One wrong move could wake up the whole planet. They followed the glowing pathways deeper below the main chamber. The tunnels were massive and silent, filled with strange machines half buried in ice. As they walked, Lyra continued scanning the symbols. These markings. They show figures that look human, she said, but they're mixed with other shapes, maybe the creators themselves. Elias touched the wall. If this place really knew humans before Earth's history even began, then maybe they had a hand in what we became. Lyra nodded slowly. Maybe humanity was their legacy, the next step in their design. Hours passed. Their oxygen tanks were running low. Finally, they reached another large chamber, even older than the first. In the center stood a tall pedestal covered in frost. Above it floated a sphere of dark light. The sentinel's voice echoed again. This is the heart gate. To open it is to know truth. But truth demands sacrifice, Elias sighed. Always a cost. Lyra stepped forward. What kind of sacrifice? One must merge with the core to activate the network. One life for the rebirth of many. The two humans looked at each other in silence. Lyra's expression softened. You know what this means, don't you? Elias shook his head. No, I'm not letting anyone die for something we don't even understand. Captain, Lyra said gently, maybe that's why it reacted to you. Maybe humanity has always been meant to take risks for others. That's what makes us human. He opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, the floor shook again. The sound of cracking ice roared around them. The chamber was collapsing. Run! He shouted. They raced back through the tunnels, the ceiling falling behind them. The lights flickered wildly. A beam of blue energy shot from the floor, barely missing them. They reached the surface chamber just as the quake stopped. The power core glowed brighter than before, and the sentinel's voice returned, softer now, almost fading. The decision is yours, bearer. Choose to awaken, or to forget. The light faded and silence returned. Elias leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Lyra looked exhausted but calm. Well, she said, catching her breath. I think we found what was sending the signal. Elias looked at the glowing chamber. Yeah, and it's asking for something we're not ready to give. Lyra smiled faintly, though her face was pale from exhaustion. You know what's strange, Captain? What? We came here looking for knowledge, and somehow the knowledge started looking back. Elias gave a small chuckle despite the weight in his chest. That's humanity for you, always digging too deep. She looked at him quietly, then said, Tomorrow we'll decide what to do. For now, we rest, he nodded. Together they returned to the survival pod. As they sat inside, the machine's soft hum filled the air again. Outside, the storm of the rift veil still raged in the sky, but deep below the ice, the alien core continued to pulse, waiting for humanity's next move. The icy winds howled above the alien structure, but deep beneath the surface, Elias Ward and Dr. Lyra Venn were awake. The soft hum of the survival pod was the only sound in the chamber. The glow from the alien symbols outside their small room flickered faintly, like distant stars in a stormy sky. Elias rubbed his temples. I can't stop thinking about that heart gate. The Sentinel said it wants someone to merge with the core. But wait, what if it destroys everything? Lyra sat next to him. Or what if it saves everything? Elias, think about it. Everything we've survived so far, the crash, the storm, the frozen moon, it's all been preparing us. The Sentinel didn't pick us at random. He sighed. I know, but the cost, it could be our lives. We don't even know what happens to the person who merges with the core. Lyra placed her hand on his arm. Maybe that's the point. Humanity isn't just about surviving individually. It's about making choices that matter for everyone else. That's what we do better than any other species I've studied. Elias looked into her eyes. He saw the same strength and determination that had kept her alive during the crash. She was right. Humanity had always taken risks to protect others, always found a way when nothing seemed possible. They left the pod and climbed the winding tunnels back toward the heart gate. The corridor stretched endlessly, glowing softly under their suit lights. The structure beneath the ice seemed to respond to their presence, symbols lighting up as they passed, energy flowing through the walls like veins of light. Finally, they reached the chamber again. The heart gate floated above the pedestal, dark and mysterious. The air around it seemed to shimmer. The decision is yours, bearer. The Sentinel's voice echoed faintly. Choose to awaken or to forget. Only your kind can continue what we started. Elias looked at Lyra. Are we ready for this? She nodded. We're the only ones who can. Humanity was meant for more than survival. It was meant to continue. He swallowed hard. All right. But we do this together. No one is left behind, Lyra smiled. Agreed. They stepped toward the heart gate. The energy around it felt warm yet alive. Elias reached out first, placing his hands on the smooth surface of the dark sphere. A sudden pulse of light ran through him, and visions flashed across his mind. Stars forming, civilizations rising and falling, humans walking across planets far older than Earth. Lyra joined him, placing her hands beside his. The visions continued, now showing humans in danger, always surviving against impossible odds, always reaching further, stronger, and wiser. Elias felt a surge of pride and awe. Humanity had endured everything the universe had thrown at it, and somehow it had always grown stronger. The Sentinel spoke again. The bearer and the guide may awaken the network. But know this, the power you release will change the galaxy. Only those who embody resilience, unity, and hope may control it. Lyra looked at Elias. That's us. That's what humans are. No matter the odds, we keep going. He nodded. Then let's do it. They placed their palms fully on the core. Light exploded around them, bathing the chamber in colors they had no names for. The heartgate hummed like a living thing. Energy flowed through their suits, through their bodies, but it did not harm them. Instead, it felt like the universe was embracing them. The floor trembled. The walls of the structure shifted, revealing tunnels they hadn't noticed before. Light stretched toward the surface as if the frozen moon itself was awakening. The Sentinel's voice grew stronger. The network opens. Humanity's legacy begins. Elias and Lyra were lifted slightly from the ground, suspended by the core's energy. The visions continued. Stars aligned, gates connecting worlds, humans walking through space with courage and wisdom. He realized the truth. Humans were never just explorers or survivors. They were builders, connectors, the next step in evolution. Lyra's voice broke through the overwhelming flood of visions. Elias, look! Above them, the heartgate split open like a blooming flower. A massive network of energy lines spread through the ice, illuminating the tunnels and reaching the surface. Beyond the frozen moon, they could see the rift veil dissipating, its violent storm calming into beautiful colors like a sunrise across space. The storms, they're gone, Elias whispered. It worked. Yes, the Sentinel said. Your choice proved your worth. The gates are now open. Humanity may reach beyond what was once impossible. When the light faded, Elias and Lyra found themselves back on the floor of the chamber. The core had returned to a gentle pulse, and the alien structure seemed calm, as if it were sleeping peacefully. Elias looked at Lyra. We did it, but how? She smiled softly. By being human. That's all it took. Resilience, unity, hope. That's what the Sentinel recognized in us, in all humans. Outside, the frozen moon had changed. Cracks in the ice glowed faintly, and distant mountains shimmered under the rift's calm sky. It was a new beginning. Elias checked the pod's comm system. If the distress signal reaches the Coalition, they'll know something incredible happened here. Lyra nodded. And maybe, just maybe, humanity is ready to step into something much bigger than we ever imagined. They returned to the survival pod to rest, finally allowing themselves a moment of relief. The hum of the bed's life support and heating system was comforting after the chaos of the past days. Do you ever think about how small we are? Elias asked quietly. Lyra leaned back, her eyes closing for a brief moment. Yes, but it's funny, being small doesn't mean we're weak. Sometimes the smallest spark can light the biggest fire. Elias chuckled. I guess that's why we're still here, huh? She smiled faintly. Exactly. And tomorrow the galaxy will begin to see why humans endure, not because we are invincible, but because we never give up. He looked at her, a faint warmth returning to his face. You know, for a moment back in the pod when we were cold and trapped, I thought we might not make it. Lyra's smile grew a little wider. And yet, here we are together, alive. There was a pause. Then she said softly, almost teasing, There's only one bed, Captain. Elias laughed.
Yeah, and somehow sharing it kept us alive. They both knew it was more than just a bed.
It was trust, cooperation, and the warmth of humanity itself, even in the cold void of a strange moon. The next morning, the light from the Heartgate illuminated the frozen sky above. The air felt lighter, calmer. The Rift Veil's storm had vanished completely, leaving the galaxy's edge peaceful for the first time in centuries. Elias and Lyra climbed to the surface, their suits scanning the new energy patterns in the ice. The alien network pulsed faintly, alive but dormant, waiting for the next generation of humans to explore it. We should report this, Elias said. The Coalition needs to know about the gates. The network. Everything, Lyra nodded. Yes, but first, we need to survive the journey home, and then we make sure humanity understands what we've found. This is just the beginning. As they prepared to leave the moon, Elias glanced back at the Heartgate. The alien structure now seemed peaceful, as if satisfied. Do you think they'll come back? He asked. Maybe, Lyra said softly. Or maybe they were always waiting for us to find the courage to awaken it ourselves. Elias smiled. Then humanity is ready for more than we ever imagined. They boarded the escape pod, the engines humming steadily now. As they lifted from the frozen moon, Elias felt a deep sense of hope. Humanity had survived the impossible once again. They had faced storms, frozen worlds, and ancient alien power, and endured. And somehow, through all of it, they had remained human. As the pod pierced the edge of the rift veil, Elias glanced at Lyra, who gave him a small, knowing smile. "There's only one bed," she said again, "but there's enough courage, hope, and determination for both of us, and for all humans." Elias nodded, "And that's enough to reach the stars." Above them, the stars shone brightly, the galaxy peaceful once more. Humanity had awakened something ancient and powerful, and for the first time they truly understood what it meant to endure, to unite, and to shine. The universe had tested them, and humanity had answered.